All right. So we had done an introduction of this on Thursday, right? We had begun on Thursday, but we wanted to, Sir Roland wanted to make it more official and wanted to include everything that's there in the syllabus. That's why we are going to have it today also. All right. So I'll just get the PowerPoint ready for you. Mm, all right. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yeah, so it's this is camping skills part two, and it's mainly done. I'll be mainly teaching it for the companions, but Sir Roland said that even others would be involved. It's just taking a little bit time for my app to load. Just one minute. All right. I'll just go on ahead. So camping skills, it's something that's very important. Whenever we go outside, especially for camping, we need to know some skills that are it's like an etiquette. It's something that we follow. It's a set of rules that we need when we're in the jungle. Especially camping is done in the jungle and not in a not usually done in a place which you're used to, like not in a daily living setting. Mainly when you go for a real camping, this the camping skills honor that we're going to be doing is actually set for outdoor living. All right, so you'll be living under the stars inside a tent, no running water. You'll have to prepare your own food, no ready-made meals. You'll have to boil your own water. You'll have to be aware of the weather. And normally in the modern days, we usually take everything. We've got our camping trucks and we go around with them. And I was just mentioning to Roland the other day that no AC and all that. But then in a hot country like yours, in Kuwait especially, I think it's the people nowadays they're taking AC along and all the luxury. But camping skills, actually, when you go, Ellen G. White also says that in the last days, as it was during the dark ages, the Christians, the true believers of Christ, had to run away to the mountains and they could not take their belongings at all because it's either your belongings or your life. If you look back, like Lot's wife did, you would lose your life because that 1 millisecond, that 1 second is all it takes to lose your life or to be able to save yourself. So in the last days, we will have to live in the mountains in different settings. Let me just begin by sharing with you my the slide. All right, not working there. I'll use the screen itself. All right. I hope you can see the slides, right? Wait, let it load. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
All right. Camping skills too, and something uh, different about this patch is you've got a red color tent and you've got a red circle around the tent. Can you see that?
Yes. Yes.
So this is camping skills too. The first requirement is to be in at least in sixth grade. I hope all of you are at least in sixth grade or yeah, this is be at least in sixth grade. I finished sixth grade more than 10 years ago, and most of the elders here have done it 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but then we have completed at least sixth grade. And why do we need to be at least in sixth grade to complete this honor? Because going camping is not a simple thing, all right? We do not take children around camping because children, they like to play around. When you tell them don't go somewhere, they like to do that. Especially me, ever since my childhood, if my mom tells me don't touch that, I'm inclined to touching that. I like to touch that. I like to do that. So that's why camping is not something, it's not a child's play, and we need discipline wherever we go for camping. That's why we have point number 2. Develop a personal philosophy of outdoor etiquette, such as courtesy to other campers and outdoor conservation. Now, when we go camping, this honor, yes? Any question? All right, I'll just continue. When this honor is actually developed by the North American division. So when they go camping, they go to a camping location. Okay, they've got a campsite where other campers also from not necessarily from your group, they will come and they will join. So you may have neighbor campers all around, and that's why they say the first point. All right, the first point is be considerate of other campers when purchasing tents. Buy ones in muted colors that will blend in with the environment. Blues, greens, and browns are perfect instead of buying red or some fluorescent color, because you get tents in whatever colors that are available. At least you'll get them in the colors of the rainbow. But here they say try to buy tents that will blend into the environment. Like when you look around, blue is a natural color. Like you find it easily when you look around, because the sky is blue. And in places like where I live in Manipur, green is a very common color. If I just look outside the window, if it was bright, I'll be able to see just green because all the trees, the hills are covered in greenery. And brown is the color of the ground usually. Or as in Kuwait, you've got desert, the desert is mainly brown. So they say please buy tents that are usually blue, green, or brown, and try not to buy red color because it sticks out. And then some people like, it's like a sore thumb. It sticks out like a nail. And try not to do that. Next point, be mindful of the noise level made in your camp. Whenever we used to go camping, we had a set time to sleep at around 10 o'clock. But as young people, we like to make noise, and that disturbs the ones who actually sleep early. And we used to get punishment for that. And if you're actually in a huge group and you've got neighboring campers, maybe those campers, they want to go for hiking next day. And if you're making too much noise, then you'll be disturbing their peace, and it's not good etiquette. All right, so don't be a nuisance, it says. If you're camping in the wilderness, try not to make noise, because again you'll be disturbing the animals, and animals are very curious. Some wild animals may want to know what this noise is, and they'll come around, and instead of inviting trouble, just try to manage your noise level. The next point, do not enter anyone else's campsite without their permission. So like I said, you may be having others be camping around, and in America, privacy is a very important thing. So they do not want you snooping around. They do not want you visiting them. Many people get angry. In fact, in America, if you're in somebody else's lawn, if they think you're a threat, they can shoot you over there, and they won't be charged for murder, because that's called trespassing, and they'll have a big sign outside. So anyway, do not simply enter any one campsite without their permission when traveling from your campsite. Suppose you need to take a shortcut and it runs through somebody's campsite. It's better to take permission or avoid that shortcut, because uh, your campsite is not going to be running anywhere unless it's an emergency. All right, leave the area cleaner than you found it. This is one rule I forgot to mention the last time. It is a saying, in fact. Take only pictures and leave only footprints. So I'll repeat it. Take only pictures and leave behind only footprints. So do not leave your trash and all that, because leaving behind trash, it shows bad manners. It's like bad manners. When you go somewhere for camping, you leave behind the trash. It doesn't show a good sign of what kind of person you are. So if you want to be more respectful of the environment, more respectful of others, because when you would have come there, you wouldn't like to camp in a place that's a garbage dump, right? We don't want to see, we do not want to live in a garbage dump. So you, how you want the place to be, how you would have expected the cleanliness of that place to be, try to leave it the same way. Take away all the garbage or whatever trash that you accumulated during the camping. Try to keep the place uh, as clean as possible. All right. Next point, the 7 leave no trace principles. So these are the 7 leave no trace principles which you will have to memorize. All right. I believe that in a few days' time, few weeks' time, I do not know when exactly, but the Kuwait Pathfinder group will be going for camping. And over there, whoever is in charge will be asking you about these 7 points. So make sure that you remember this point. The first point is plan ahead and prepare. So, like I already mentioned, you do not go for camp. You will not go camping for 1,000 people or 10,000 people. Why? Because that many people are not involved in Kuwait Pathfinder. You will plan, you will prepare for the amount of people. You're not going to go there with 100 kilos of food or maybe 1,000 kilos of food because you're not going to be eating that much. You're not going to go camping in bikini or swimsuits because it's a hot place. You will plan and prepare your campsite. If you're going to a place that has swimming, that has enough water for swimming, of course you can carry your uh, swimwear, but then you're not going to be wearing just that and traveling up there because that is silly to do. You will get sunburned and I do not know what will happen. Anyway, the first important thing is to plan ahead. Always think about what is going to happen. If you're going to the desert, make sure you have enough water because that's a major killer in deserts. If you're going to a rainy place, do not go to a rainy place without umbrella, or without any rain protection for your electronics or maybe for your clothes, underclothes, which you need to keep dry. It's just the other day I had gone hiking uh, to one of the fields. The people here have fields on top of the mountain, and it started raining, and I was drenched, and I had to walk in all those wet clothes, and it was not pleasant. So prepare and plan ahead. Next, travel and camp on durable surfaces. When travel, do not travel in places that are dangerous. Like if it's the first time you're going, do not simply enter it because it could be quicksand, or do not marshy area because in marshy places you've got many dangerous animals, insects, bacteria, and you do not know what could be lurking around. So travel on durable surfaces and also camp on durable surfaces. Durable means a solid ground, right? We sing on Christ, a solid rock I stand. And you've got the story also, the wise man and the foolish man. The wise man built his house upon the rock, the foolish man built his house upon the sand. So that was not durable. The sand was not durable. And when the floods came, when the rain came, the sand washed away and his house was no more. Next point, third point, dispose of waste properly. So, like we mentioned in the point before, in the slide before, your waste back with you where you'll be able to dispose it wisely. Not throw your waste here and there, especially in the modern age with plastics. Plastics take a long time to degrade and they actually ruin the environment and they may get stuck in some animals, some insects, and it may trouble them. Next thing, leave what you find. Whenever you go camping, you may find something interesting. A nest. Just because the nest doesn't have a parent doesn't mean you take doesn't mean you'll take a stone, beautiful stone away. It's best to leave while camping. But then unless you've got a honor particular instruction to take something, then it's permissible to take you're doing rocks honor. So you need to pick up rocks in your campsite. You find honor in the campsite. And they told you to take it because it's your honor, it's your requirement. You will be able to take all those. Next, minimize campfire impacts. Fire is a very dangerous thing. And they say a burnt child dreads the fire. Sorry. Fire can destroy houses, it can kill lives. It only takes a spark to get going. That's the song. And around here where I live during the summers, the whole mountain can burn just because somebody forgot to uh, put off their cigarette properly and toss out the cigarette, or some matches. If they're burning something, they like to burn fire in the winters, and then just a small ember can burn the entire mountain, entire house. So be very careful when you're around fire. Wear cotton clothes. Do not try to wear nylon clothes or synthetic clothing, the plastic type of clothing. Do not try to wear those around fires, because one small ember can burn everything and it'll get stuck to you. Once it gets stuck to you, you can get third-degree burns, and sometimes the cloth will become part of your body, because it's very that's how it is. So be very careful around fire, and you do not want to have a campfire accident or a fire accident or any accident in a campsite, because you will be far away from proper medical care, because that's what camping is for. You go far away from usual living. And if you're far away from a hospital, if you've got third-degree burns, if you've got some accident due to fire, then it's very hard, or you could burn the whole campsite or the whole mountain. Like recently in California, they had a big fire. Why? Because somebody had a baby shower. When a woman is pregnant, they throw some colors. So they had a cracker, a rocket that, I don't know what, I think it was pink or blue, whatever. They burned the whole half of it in California. So be very careful with fire. Next point, respect wildlife. We should always be respectful of the animals around us, of the wildlife, because do not tease animals, because they can get angry, and an angry animal, you do not know how it will react. Like I said again, in a campsite is a very dangerous situation. You don't want to get bitten by any animals. You don't want to get hurt by any animals. Last point again, always ask for permission before entering another campsite. We discussed this point before. I'll be going to the next slide. These are very important. Know and understand the following 6 W's for the selection of a good campsite. Now, before going for camping, these are the 6 points or the 6 W's you need to know when you go for camping. All right. And I would like you all to memorize these 6 also. The first one, can you all tell me what it is? What does the slide say? The first point?
Wind.
Wind. Now, the first point is wind. Why should we be careful about wind? Now, wind is something the Bible says it's like the spirit. You do not know when the wind comes. You do not know when it goes. Okay, and if you camp in a certain place, wind always follows a path, but you do not know where it comes from, when it goes, but you can have an idea, because during certain seasons, it can be windy in some places. All right. So find an area that is protected from the wind. If you think that it might be windy, if there are signals or signs that it could be windy later on, you camp in a place that is not windy, that is protected from wind. You do not camp in the open where the wind will take you, or next to a cliff where the wind will blow your entire tent down with you, and then people will have to find your dead body. So this is what it says, right? This requires knowing or guessing that at the normal wind direction. Look at the direction trees are leaning and the current wind direction. Trees usually lean away from the wind, or they lean in the direction that the wind is blowing in. So you'll be able to find out, okay, I think the wind is blowing in this direction, and you'll be able to judge how fast the wind is blowing, and according to that, place your tent, because your tent can act like a parachute during heavy wind, and it can take you along with it. Next is water. I had asked Sir Roland last time, what is the most important thing you will need whenever you're going camping? A human needs air, wind, for that matter. Air is the most important thing that you need because 4 minutes without air and you will die. Next is water. Three days without water and you can die. So when you're going camping, try to camp in a place where you can get drinking water, where drinking water is available. Don't camp too close to the water because you do not know when, if it's a river, the river can rise. All right. So I had this experience in Bangladesh. I was at the Bangladeshi border and there was not a single drop of rain in Bangladesh, but the entire place was flooded. You know why? Because it rains a lot in Meghalaya, in India, and India is on a mountain. I mean, Meghalaya is mountainous. It's on a mountain, the place where it rains, and all that water it runs and goes to Bangladesh because Bangladesh is a plain. So even though there's not a single drop of rainfall in Bangladesh, even though they cannot see a single cloud, it floods suddenly. So be very careful when you're camping. All right. And you need to have fresh water. Do not drink where the water is dirty, where the water smells. It's not good because you can get a disease which you can never cure. You know, drinking water simply is very dangerous. Always boil your water before drinking. Next is the weather. It's very important to know how the weather will be before you camp. Like in the northern hemisphere, December is cold.
Where? Peter,
We all
what is it? Tell me
December
about
is
some
cold,
weather.
so
Hmm?
you're not going to be
Weather?
wearing summer for camping, or you're not going to be going for camping without blankets.
Oh, thank you.
No, it's important to try to carry warm clothes. You check the weather beforehand. In the internet age, you can check the forecast, what it is going to be for the next week. So try to do that, and according to the weather, try to pitch your campsite. Next is wild things. Try to be aware of the wildlife around. Like the place where I live here right now, we've got leeches, we've got scorpions, we've got ticks, and we've got snakes. So I have to be aware of all this, and I should try to carry anti-venom, medicines in case you get bit either by a snake or a scorpion, stung
Change,
scorpion.
you are become smart. Really? Cannot go down. What is that? Because you are white? You will die.
For wild things.
There.
Which one?
This one. This white.
This one?
No.
This?
Excuse me. I think there's a lot of audio in the background. Anyway, so beware of the animals that are around. Like in Kuwait, I know there are very dangerous snakes. There are vipers that go. It's called the sidewinder. I think they keep sidewinding on the sand. They are very poisonous snakes. You've got Egyptian cobras around there. You've got scorpions that are very deadly, like the Scorpion King based in the desert, that movie. So be careful of the wild things. And mosquitoes can also be a very big nuisance. Spiders, ticks, flies, and mosquitoes. So be careful about the wild things that are around and try to carry precaution. Next is your wood. At night, it can get very cold in the desert. You know, people think that desert is a hot place, but you all living around there in Kuwait, you know how cold it can get at night. People can die because of cold. In fact, they say many people die because of the cold in the desert than because of the heat. Because in the heat, they try to protect themselves, but at night they think, okay, I'm going to be fine, and they die of hypothermia in the desert. Imagine that. So try to carry enough wood, try to find a place where you'll be able to get enough wood to make a fire at night, because it not only protects you from the cold, but it also protects you from wild animals. Animals are afraid of fire, so having enough wood you'll be able to have your campsite. Now, one more thing is, do not try to camp under dead wood, because any wind, any change in weather, or perchance the wood might fall down on your tent. It can harm you, it can break your neck. You do not know. So do not try to take the chance and and do not camp under dry, dead wood. Next, willingness. Be very sure that the people around are willing to allow you to camp over there. That is one willingness. And the next thing is also you should be willing to go camping. Now, hearing the word camping, you're very excited. But then you always have the habit of living in luxury. Once you go there, you stay there for an hour and you say, oh, it's too hot. There is too much heat. There is no AC. I mean, I'm not getting Pizza Hut or KFC around here. I want to go back. You should be willing to go camping, except that you're learning something new. And as Adventists, we're going to be facing it in the last days, on top of the mountain. Nobody's, maybe, hopefully the crows bring KFC or Pizza Hut. I do not know. I'm not Elijah. I'm not God. But then you're going to have a hard time. So take it as a learning experience. Be willing to experience something new, to experience the nature that God has created for us. All right. So this is when you're going to be, this is another requirement. Participate in a weekend camp out. Now the Kuwait Pathfinders are going to be doing it for 3 days, July 15, 16, and 17, which is good, which is coming very soon. Today is 12, in 3 more days time. So since you're going in 3 more days time, do not forget the 6 W's, and you're going to have to memorize the 7 points that I had already told you. Next point, point number 6. Take part in a camp worship service to include one of the following. Now you're going to have to be doing this. You're going to have to lead either a song service, which is very easy for us. I hope it is easy, but some people, they have stage fright. I hope you are able to conquer your stage fright, but try leading in a song service. As Adventists, we are surrounded by songs. We are known as good singers. So take a songbook or sing from memory. Try leading a song service. Next, take a Sabbath school lesson study. You do not have to make it a long thing, like from the story, a small story, the story of Jonah. We should obey God at all times. And many times you want to do something, but it's God's plan. God wanted to save the people. Jonah wanted the people to die. That's a small lesson you can take, Sabbath school lesson study. Next is you can tell a story, a short story with a good moral, which will help you in the future. Like many times we've heard countless number of stories, but then at the time of applying those stories, we do not apply it. Like we've heard it since childhood. Do not tell lies. You've heard the story of the boy who cried wolf. Yet all of us, even as adults, we tell lies. But then these small stories, they keep reminding us. The Bible says that the children of Israel were supposed to keep telling the stories of the past because it reminded them of how God worked with them. It reminded them of how we as human beings are so fallen. We keep falling in our sins. And if we keep having that in our mind, we are less prone to making the same mistakes again. Next point, you can do a worship thought also. It is a short sermon, like I just gave 2 points from the story of Jonah. You can do something short like that. So that is your 6th requirement. Number 7, know how to safely light and use a camp stove and lantern. Now this is the image of a camp stove. This one uses charcoal. Nowadays in the modern age, you can carry a small gas cylinder also. It is not hard, or they use, I forgot what they say, lighter fluid. All right, so that's it. They carry, in America, they've got lighter fluid for their barbecues. You can carry that, use it. So you should know how to safely light this. Do not simply play with fire like I already discussed, because you will need to cook food. If it gets, nobody likes to eat raw rice. Nobody likes to eat raw atta. You're not going to be eating raw atta. It doesn't taste nice. It's good to cook food. So you're going to cook food, you need fire, and always know that fire is dangerous. You should know how you're supposed to light it. Like this one, you're supposed to make charcoal and you're going to put the charcoal inside the stove. But then the other one, like your propane gas tank, you just light it like your gas stoves that you've got at home. So I'll just read the point. The simplest thing to remember is that fuel is flammable. Fuel, like your gas can burn. That's what it says. And it should be treated with respect. if you burn it in the wrong way, it can explode. And all right, so it's sorry for that. And what happens is when you carry them, try to treat them with care, especially pressurized gas cylinders. Like I was just watching a video the other day. They dropped the gas cylinder and it exploded. And an exploding gas cylinder can be very dangerous. It can destroy an entire house. And like I said, in a campsite, you do not want to be having any problems. You do not want to be having any issues. Um, the next thing is you need to know how to put it off. All right, do not leave your fire simply burning, because when you're asleep you do not know a wind can come, it'll burn your campsite, it can burn your campfire. I mean, your campfire can burn your campsite, it can burn other people's campsite, and it can be a disaster. So always try to put out your campfire, or try to put out your fire, or if you need coals burning, if it's in a dangerous place, make sure that you keep the fire in a contained area. It means try to make sure that even if the fire may move little bit, it will not burn the surrounding area. All right. Next is no safety rule demonstrate your ability to properly cut firewood. Now, I don't think you're going to be doing that. I hope that you can do the practical, but this is what it says. When you're cutting firewood, let's see if I've got I'll show you around me. Okay, it's on screen share anyway. So what happens is the instructions given here is if you're having firewood, it's better to use a saw, all right, rather than axe. But when you're doing that, try to keep the wood stable. All right, I had a very bad accident last year where the electric saw jumped from the wood. The wood was not stable or something was wrong, and it chopped my finger off. And I'm living with a finger without a bone because the doctors here were not able to fix it, and my finger is I mean, it's a bad accident, and I do not wish for it to happen to anyone because it stops me from doing things that I love. I cannot use my left hand as I could. I like climbing. I cannot go climbing because my left hand won't support my weight. So when you're cutting wood, be very careful because blades are sharp and an axe blade can fly. You know the story of Elisha where he was chopping the tree and the axe blade just flew. Luckily, it did not hit anybody, but always be careful. Keep your wood on solid ground. And when you cut, try not to bring the axe head too close to your leg. All right, so they say keep your wood on top of another wood and try, it's better to use a saw. All right, try to cut, like it says, dead wood can be broken instead of sawn. So if you've got a thin piece of wood, you can break it by using some effort. If you're strong enough, you can break it with your knees, but always be careful while breaking wood also, because sometimes it can fly off. A tiny splinter can enter your eye, and it can be very painful. Some people have lost fingers, eyes, limbs because they did not, I mean, because of accidents due to wood. All right. Number 9, using fuzz sticks or shave sticks. Build and know the use of a council of crisscross fire and one type of cooking fire. Now we've got at least 7, 8, around 7 or 8 basic fire shapes. All right. Now they say try to use a council fire or crisscross fire. Now the image of a council fire is here. If you look at the image, they keep a row of wood in a certain direction. They put smaller logs in the opposite direction, so they form a plus. All right, so one in a crisscross way. This is called a council fire. This fire, it burns well because it's got ventilation from down. To have a fire, you need three things. You need fuel, you need air, and you need heat. Now, a council fire allows for all three. The fuel is already there. You've built your wood nicely, and that wood is fed with a huge
Joy?
amount of oxygen, amount of air. Yeah.
You want me to share from my screen because it will be nice and big. I'll let you control my screen then.
All right, you can do that.
Yeah. Okay. Just stop yours.
Okay. All right, sorry for that. All right, yeah, so this is a little better.
See if you can control
So
my
you've got,
screen.
okay, how do I control your screen?
Yeah. Click it.
Clicked.
You are controlling. Yeah. Now you are controlling my screen. Yeah. Yeah. You control just now.
Okay, it's taking a little bit time. Could you go back there
Which one?
to the, because it's
Okay.
buffering, right? Yeah, so I'll just direct you and
Yeah.
it'll be better if I direct you.
Okay.
Next. Yeah, so this, next, that image of the, yeah. So this is the council fire. So previous one. Yeah. If we can see this, okay, I'll just read it for you. The council fire was used by Native Americans during their meetings or councils. It is very much like the log cabin fire, except that more than two logs are laid on each layer. Be careful not to lay the logs too close to one another. Leave gaps of at least 1 inch. So when you're laying these logs, try to leave a little bit gap. And this council fire was used by Native Americans. And there's one more type called teepee fire, which is a triangle shape one, but this was mainly used by North American Indians during their councils. And like the log cabin fire, the council fire is very stable and it falls onto itself as it burns, remaining within the fire ring. Unlike the log cabin fire, the council fire lights easily as the main fuel is located directly above the kindling and tinder where convection will carry the flames. The fire is hot and will make a nice bed of coals for cooking. It also uses a lot of fuel. This fire is sometimes called a pyramid fire as well. If you look at the shape, you've got big logs. On top of that, you've got a smaller log, set of logs in a 90 degrees arrangement. And again, so it comes like a pyramid shape. And the good thing about this is when it burns, the fire doesn't fall outside. All right, the fire falls inside between those two logs. Those two big logs, can you see at the bottom? That is the base. So it falls in between that and the fire can get very hot because you've got enough of air supply. All right, can you go to the previous slide, Roland? Yeah, so using fuzz sticks, if you look at this image on the left side, it's called a fuzz stick. When you start a fire, you do not carry paper and all that in the jungle. If you've got paper, light grass and all, you can use that. It's a little easy. So when you're using a knife, try not to point the knife towards you. When people start cutting, many times they point the knife towards them, but with wood and knives, try to point the knife away from you so that even if the knife slips, it will go away from you and you will not hurt yourself. And try not to keep somebody in front of you because if it slips, it can slip and cut the other person. But anyway, let's get to the point here. This image down there is called a fuzz stick, where you cut tiny bits, not totally. You chip little bit. All right, so it looks like a Christmas tree. The shape looks like a Christmas tree, and this thing easily catches a fire. All right, so a hard wood, tiny piece of wood, like maybe a finger thickness. You start slowly chipping, and then you keep going until you've got a certain amount of shavings, and that will easily catch a fire. So you, with this small shaving, you'll be able to start a small fire. You can add smaller sticks, I mean sticks into the fire, which will slowly turn bigger. On top of that, you can add bigger logs, and finally you'll have a roaring fire in no time. All right, two slides towards the right. Yeah, so this is, they asked to show two kinds of cooking fires. It one type, but I'm showing you two right here. So the one down is called a hunter's fire. All right, so they use it for hunt. When hunters go that for hunting, they can use this fire for cooking. Now you see that they are cooking an omelette, two omelets in a pan. You cannot simply keep this pan on a council fire, because the fire goes inside and your pan also might fall inside the fire. But then when you're having a fire like this, your base will be able to hold your pot nicely, and your fire also will be able to cook. You'll be able to reach the pot nicely, because if you directly put it on top of the logs, many times your stove, I mean your utensil, will put off the fire. All right, so a hunter's fire is a cooking fire. You've got two big logs as the base, and you keep two tiny logs in between, and your utensil is placed between the two logs. I wish I could show you this in practical, but since it's like this, you'll just have to look at the picture and try to imagine how it is in reality. Now the picture on top, the black and white picture, is called a Dakota fire. All right. So you make two holes, like if you play in the sand, you make tunnels, right? So one side is an open, you've got a tunnel. So anyway, both sides are open. One side you keep your pan on one of the holes, and on the other side you keep your fire. You'll be able to feed your fire. So your pan is not directly on top of the fire, a constant stream of air. The next slide, please. This is known as a Swedish fire torch. I'm sorry for the spelling mistake, but it's called a Swedish fire torch. Now what happens is they take a log and they cut it in diagonal toward on the second picture. You can see the way that the log is cut. All right. So the good thing about this fire is you don't have to keep putting logs. All right. This fire feeds itself, and you do not have to keep putting logs. In the first picture, they've kept a pot there. You can keep a pot there and it won't put the fire off, because from the side you can see those gaps. Air is able to enter there, and you'll be able to cook nicely whatever you need to cook. Next slide, please. Fire safety, I believe. Yeah. So fire safety, whenever you're going to start a fire, make sure you start a fire in a safe place. Do not burn your fire in a grassy area. Clear the area. All right. Like they say, it should be at least 10 feet all around. Clear the area, because one small spark can go. And last time we had a fire, a wildfire running, and we spent a long time chasing the fire down, because it just spread like that and we could not catch up with it. Luckily, we had a bucket of water and we poured all around, and then we were able to contain the fire. So be very careful with fire, because once it goes with the wind, you can almost never control it. Do not light a fire under overhanging branches, because sometimes your fire can be very big, and the fire does not actually have to touch the branch to start a fire in the branches. All right. Something is called as a flash point. That's a point where something burns. So if the wind becomes too hot, if the air becomes too hot, and if the branch is dry, automatically the branch will catch fire, the tree will be on fire, and that will be the end of your beautiful camping. You'll have to control the fire rather than enjoy your beautiful campfire. Next point, do not use accelerants. Like, do not simply put kerosene, petrol and oil into the fire. Learn to light a fire without these, because these accelerants, like the word says, it can make the fire spread quickly. And if you are not able to control the fire, that's the end of your camp. Next point, put out the fire. Like I said before, learn to put out the fire completely unless you need it for the night, especially when you're in a dangerous situation where animals are around, but leave it in such a way that it does not spread, the fire does not spread around. Next is, do not build a fire on top of flammable materials such as grass or leaves. I already mentioned that. Do not build your fire on top of grass or leaves. Do not build a campfire inside your tent also, because your tent nowadays is usually made out of synthetic material, and your tent can catch on fire, and yeah, you also will catch on fire if your tent catches on fire. Cut away the sod, keep it moist. So whenever you're having charcoal later, charcoal, and then when you unearth the charcoal, will still be hot. Next point, keep fire extinguishing supplies handy. Fire extinguishing supplies can be a bucket of sand or a bucket of water or a very thick blanket. So if the fire keeps spreading, by mistake, you can cover it, you can pour a bucket of water over it, or you can cover it with a thick blanket and make sure that the synthetic material. All right. Or maybe you can carry a fire also, which is recommended by in this slide. Do not remove burn from a fire. Like some people like to play. There was this movie, what is that? Mr. Bones. Towards the end of the movie, you know, they swing their club like that, and then they light the sky like the fireworks. So when they're small, we used to do that. And silly of us, we actually had a fire near our house, like because we are playing with the sticks. And I'm warning you because it happened to me from experience. Do not try to play with sticks because there can go, you can poke somebody's eye and things can go bad. Next, watch for escape the fire pit and extinguish them immediately. Like the song says, it only takes a spark to get a fire going. If you see an ember flying, a big ember especially, flying towards the dry grass, try to stop that from touching the grass and extinguish it immediately. Wear proper footwear around a fire. Do not wear synthetic chappals. During winter, once upon a time, one of my friends was wearing synthetic slippers. I mean, nowadays all you get is synthetic, but then it was made of cheap rubber, and he was warming his feet like that, and the rubber melted on his feet. Now imagine that, and he got burned in his feet because the whole slipper melted beneath his feet, and it got stuck to. Luckily, it was not serious. Next, be aware that paper, cardboard, and leaves create floating embers that rise out of the pit fire and may land dozens of yards away. Now, when you've got paper, you know if you burn paper, it flies. And not only dozen yards away, sometimes this paper can fly miles, not miles, kilometers away. You know, that's how a big piece of this one with the wind, that ember will fly a few kilometers away. You may be enjoying a campsite, burning half the state without your knowledge, because that ember flew few kilometers away and then started a fire where you could not even see. So do not put paper. That's why they discourage using cardboard, paper, and dry leaves, simply putting on your campfire. Next, do not light a fire when conditions are adverse. In high winds, it's light fires because the wind can take your embers. It can take not only embers but small pieces of your wood also, and can deposit it somewhere, starting another fire. Or during drought conditions. Why? Because when there are droughts, the meaning of drought is no rain. When there is no rain, things around become dry, dead and dry, and they can easily catch fire. Thank you, Roland. Explain 2 ways to keep camp food cool. Now in India, we've got pots, and the principle of pots is evaporation. Even AC, you know why the AC keeps you cool? Because of the principle of evaporation. All right, when something evaporates quickly, like when you put a sanitizer in your hand, you feel cool, right? It's because the alcohol quickly evaporates, and when it evaporates quickly, it takes away some of the heat with it, and therefore you feel cool. Now, one way to keep food cool without ice is to place it inside a mesh bag. Like you've got mesh bag, they look a little bit like mosquito nets, and you can secure it in a stream or brook. So you can cover that mesh bag around with some plastic, and you can keep it inside water. All right, so the water will keep your food cool, or you can tie a cloth around it, a wet cloth. You have to keep wetting it, and you can hang it somewhere, because due to evaporation, like I mentioned, it will take the heat away and your food will remain cool. And that's a very economical way of keeping food cool without ice. Next thing, next slide. Build 2 different camp cranes. I hope that you will be able to build this in your campsite. So it's nothing difficult. It's just a hook, a wood shape in a wood shape like a hook. Like you can see on the left side, they add a small notch. The pot hanger is like a hook. So you've got a hook on top, and down they make a small, they cut a small hole. I mean, not a hole, a small notch. It's called a notch. And you can hang your pot on that. So you can use that, keep your pot directly on the fire. So that's one way for a pot hanger. And if you want to remove your pot from the fire, if you've got no cloth, you cannot use your hand because the heat will burn you. So you can use a pot hook. You can have your a piece of wood that's shaped in like a hook, and you can use it for removing your pot from over the fire. Next slide, please. Now these are cranes. You know cranes, right? Cranes are used to lift heavy things or used to lift things. Now the principle works like a seesaw. All right, one side you put some weight, on the other side you put another weight, and depending on the fulcrum, if you know what fulcrum, effort, and load are, you'll know that this is the principle. So you have a piece of wood there. On the other side, you put a log. I mean, in the middle, you put a log, so it becomes like a seesaw. And you put a stone, so that stone will support the wood. And on the other side of the wood, you can put your pot on top of the fire. All right, so that is one. This is called a simple crane. Next slide, please. This is called an adjustable crane. So what they do is they make a tripod. All right. In in Nott's honor, you will be able to learn about lashing. So when you tie 3 pieces of wood, they become a tripod, and you can put a long wood in between those 3 pieces of wood on top of the tripod, and it become a seesaw, like a seesaw again. And on one side you will put your pot over the fire. On the other end you can tie a rope. All right, and you can fasten the rope to a peg on the ground. So if you want the pot to go higher, you shorten the rope. All right, so when the rope becomes shorter, the other side goes up, and your pot goes above the fire, higher above the fire. If you make the rope longer, then your pot will go closer to the fire, and you can if you need more heat on your pot, then you can do that. Next, so that is called the adjustable crane. Next slide, please. This is a simple crane. So what you do in a simple crane, you find a wood that is Y-shaped. You put it on the ground, and then you put your log again, and on one end you put your food, I mean your utensil, your bucket, whatever, on top of the fire, and the other end is stuck to the ground. So it's just a support. The other side is stuck. This one is a simple crane with a forked branch. The first one and next one is double support crane. Now in the previous one you had only one Y-shaped branch. In this you've got 2 Y-shaped branches, and you keep the log on top of that, and then you can see they use a hook to support the utensil over the fire. Next, please. Prepare camp meals using boiling, frying, and baking. So when you go for camping, you do not have a fridge. I mean, you're not supposed to be carrying a fridge. And so what are you going to do if you've got no stove? How do you prepare your meals? One thing is, you cannot be having your extravagant food that you're having at home. So you're going to have to boil some things. The food that we can boil are normally rice, pasta you can boil, eggs, and some vegetables like cabbages you can boil, carrots, green beans, corn. All these are edible, easily edible when they are boiled. So those are some food that you can boil, or maybe some oats also you can boil. Next is frying. You can fry some pan, you can fry some eggs, you can fry some French toast, or whatever you've had. So that is frying. You can fry, if you've got a pan, you can use it. And in some places they use stones, all right? They use hot stones for frying. So they'll heat the stone, a right type of stone that doesn't crack, and you can keep your egg on top of that. You can crack your egg, and your egg will automatically fry on top of that. Next is baking. Camp baking is very interesting. All right, you can put your egg or potato inside a leaf. Like if you found a green leaf, you can wrap it nicely and then you can stuff it inside the fire, and that will bake it. Or you can put charcoal and you can put sand on top, and then you can again pack your egg, your potato in leaves, and you can put it in between the charcoal and the sand, and you'll get baked. Your egg will be baked, your potato will be baked. Or you can even bake your corn or veggie burgers. Here they say they wrap them around aluminum foil, but then in the jungle, if you do not have aluminum foil, you can always use banana leaves or some big green leaves. All right, next. Demonstrate tent site selections properly and pitch and strike a tent. All right, so it would have been nice if I would have been able to show you a demonstration of this, but then right now in modern days you've got those igloo shaped tents which have their own pegs, they've got their own sticks, those poles, those thin poles, adjustable poles, and you've got your tent. So it's very easy to pitch a tent nowadays, but those days tent pitching was hard. Like in the days of Israelites, you just get a big cloth, you would have to pitch your base logs. You would have to make your frame out of wood, and then you would have to cover it with a tarpaulin or like that. Your tent would be in a mountain shape, like a proper mountain shape, like the picture that they have in your camping skills honor. So that's the traditional tent. But nowadays you've got your different brands of tents that use synthetic cloth, and they're basically igloo shaped. So these ones are very easy. When you make a tent, when you select a site for pitching your tent, try to select a site that is flat, that isn't too wet. All right, try to pitch it in a flat place that does not contain many stones, that is not windy. A place that is not windy. Do not pitch your tent under dry wood or on a sandy ground or on a river bed. Okay, try to pitch it in a plain, sturdy area. Not too windy, not under trees, not in a sandy area, not in a marshy area. Because if you're in a riverbed, like I said, in Bangladesh, suddenly the water comes, flash floods. Like in desert, you may know, it may rain somewhere and the water will just come running and it will take your tent away. And if you're under branches, like I mentioned before, the branch may break, it may fall on your tent, it may break your body also. Next, carefully examine the space above your tent site. Make sure there are no dead branches, icicles, coconuts, or anything that could fall on the tent and cause harm. Now, do not camp under coconut trees because coconuts are big, up to 2 kilos. If one falls on you, It can crack your head. It can kill you. Do not camp under coconut trees or something that could fall in you. Do not camp next to a cliff, because cliff, the stones from the cliff fall down. You could have a landslide, you could have a rock slide, and that could damage your tent.
I'm in.
Do not camp on top of a cliff. Do not camp next to a cliff where the rocks could fall. All right. So that's a good tent site selection. Next slide, please. All right. So here I've got a few campsites. All right. Now the first picture, we'll go we'll go from left to right. The first picture, do you think it's a good campsite? I would like you all to answer it. The first picture to the left.
No.
We'll go
The
from
brown,
left to right.
it is fully brown, that one.
No,
Or the
the
green
fully
one?
brown one is the second marked, right? Can you see Sir Roland is marking the picture? Yeah, the mouse
Okay.
is over the picture.
Yeah. That's a good site.
Yeah, you're right, because it's an open space and the trees are not bending, which means it's not too windy. If the area is green, it means you've got water around. There are no dry wood around. So you'll try to camp in an open space, not under the tree, but then slightly far away from the tree. Now the middle picture with the dead wood. Is it a good idea to camp under this dead tree?
No.
No, because like I mentioned, the tree could fall down. If you've got thunder, I do not know, lightning strike, I'm sorry. If a lightning suddenly, I do not know why they like to strike dead trees, why God made it in such a way. But then lightning will usually strike this dead tree and then the tree might catch on fire. You may not even know it. And even the wood might fall on you. So it's a bad camping site. Now the third one, the totally brown one, which looks like a river. Is it a good camping site?
No.
No,
It
because
is
like
not even ground.
yeah, it has to be even ground and it's not even. And suddenly if you've got a flash flood, suddenly water will come from somewhere and it will take you away. Your tent will become a boat. You'll go hitting somewhere here and there and that will be the end of you. You'll have broken bones. That is what flash floods do. It's very dangerous. Now we'll go back to the left. The first picture towards the left, the desert. Yeah. Is it a good camping site?
No, not really.
Yeah, you're right. Because like I said, do not try to camp on sandy soil. Like you all who are living in Kuwait, you know about the sand dunes, right? One morning they're here, the next morning they're empty. The whole landscape will be empty because the sand has shifted with the wind. Now if you've pitched your tent over there, your tent also will go like that. And then while you're sleeping, some people are good sleepers like me. I'll not know in which place I landed. And that would be the end of my camping because I pitched my tent in a sandy ground and it's not advisable to pitch in sandy ground. Now the last picture towards the right, the one with the river, is it a good camping site?
No,
Why?
it is very marshy, it looks, and water is there, and the
Yeah.
grass is quite big. So it is not very safe.
Yeah, you're right. Like we mentioned about wildlife, right? In this huge grass, where there's big
Right.
grass like this, you can have snakes, you can have all dangerous kinds of nasty. You do not know what you're allergic to. One of my friends is allergic to ants. One bite from an ant can send him to the hospital. It can block his windpipe and he can die. So when you're in places like this, people are allergic to grass and all that. So, and like you mentioned, the water over there, suddenly it can be, it can flood and the land is not even. If you pitch your tent over there, then it can be dangerous because of the wildlife, because of the way the water is.
Also, some
right.
children could go near that water, and suddenly they could go near the water and be dangerous to their lives and to spoil the camp.
Yeah, you're right. Like I mentioned before, kids like to do things. If you tell them, please don't go near the water, you will find some kids going to the water. And water is dangerous if you have got unsupervised. Like, okay, like me, just 2 weeks ago, I was swimming. All right, so we had worked the whole day, and okay, I may not be an expert in swimming, but then I can take care of myself. In a deep place, I got cramp, and I was unable to move my legs like efficiently. And then I started to drink water. My friend was around there, and he was able to take me to safety. But like I said, anything can happen around water. Now the last image. What is wrong with that picture?
Not even ground also, and it is slopey. And
Yeah, and you've got a cliff.
yeah, cliff. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got cliffs around, so it's not even ground. You cannot sleep in an uneven ground. I've tried that, trying to sleep on an uneven ground, and in the next day you'll have backache. I do not know what type of aches you'll have. You'll know places in your body that you did not know before because of the pain. All right,
Mm.
you will not know that you had those muscles before because of the
Mm.
pain that you experience on sleep, because of sleeping on uneven ground, and rocks can fall, and if it rains a little bit, all these rocks can slide. So from all these pictures, one of the best places to camp is the first picture. All right, that's one of the best places. The next one is also fine if you remove the tree. If you camp a little away from the tree, dead tree, then it's a fine place to camp. Now
Right.
it's not to camp in the riverbed because it's very dangerous and it's uneven ground, sandy place. You have to be very careful about the wind. And the next one, if you are life or death situation only, if you are not afraid of all these insects, if you have no allergies, then maybe you can clear the area out a little bit and camp there because you've got water nearby. But if you've got kids, then do not try to do camping in that area because kids will surely go in the water. Next point. Next slide, I mean. Pitching and striking a tent. Like I already mentioned, nowadays you've got the instructions on your tent when you go to your supermarket where you can buy your tent. You can do it. In fact, we've done pitching a tent, a group of 6 in less than a minute. So that's 60 seconds. One, two. We did it in, I think, 35 seconds. So group of 6, my unit, we laid out the poles, we stretched the tent, we pitched it in 35, less than 40 seconds, and we undid it in another 40 seconds. So in less than 1 minute 15 seconds, we were able to pitch the tent and we were able to undo the tent. So that's what it says, pitching and striking a tent. When you pitch a tent, you've got tent pegs. All right, you've got pegs. So you peg your tent in the corners so that even if there is a wind, your tent will not blow away. And then try to keep the cover up because at night dew falls down, and dew, when it falls, it can be cold. You can get a cold. It's not good to get sick during camping. It can ruin your entire camping experience. All right, next one, please. Next slide, Roland. Cleaning a tent. Now you should always be careful how you use your tent. When you open your tent, make sure that there are no insects hiding. Even in your house, spiders can be there which will live in a tent because you do not use tent every day. You keep it, you store it till your next camping appointment. So spiders can make a house there. You may have brought a spider from your previous camping site or some insect. And always check your tent, clean your tent well opening after opening it, and before closing it also check it well, because if you store a wet tent, then moisture can ruin the fabric or the material of your tent, and you can clean it with little bit water and using a paper towel, or you can wet a cloth and wipe the tent. And do not leave it wet though. You should wipe it with a wet cloth, let it dry, and then store it nicely. And clean all the dirt, because even a tiny stone while packing, sometimes they will cut your cloth. All right, and then you'll have a hole in your tent. If you pitch it in a little bit watery place, the water will come up. I've had that experience. And so keep your tent clean after opening it. Check for insects, and before packing it, make sure that you dry it and pack it, and that there are no insects in it. All right, next thing, bedding. Now, many times nowadays, people carry your own bedding. You've got your air foam. It's called an air foam. It's like styrofoam, like your thermocol, but then it's light and people use it for their bedding. All right. And many people, they carry their sleeping bag. So there is a way of folding your sleeping bag. You do not fold it like your bed sheets. You do not fold your sleeping bag like your bed sheet. You have to roll it tight and make it compact so that it does not carry air. Air carries a lot of weight. All right. If you there I actually experienced that while traveling. When I packed my clothes tightly, quite tightly, when I packed them, the amount of air that the clothes had was about 2 kilos. So 2 kilos difference, packing my clothes tightly and packing my clothes loosely. My luggage showed a difference of almost 2 kilos. So try to pack your sleeping bag nicely, tightly, roll it well so that it does not carry that extra air which would have that weight, and you pack it well. Next point is, try to keep your sleeping bag dry. All right, because while sleeping, you do not want to sleep in a wet environment. And if you didn't pack your sleeping bag well, your sweat or your water bottle could leak into your sleeping bag. And like I told you, it's unpleasant to sleep on a wet bed. Next point, describe how to properly clean your sleeping bag or bedroll. You can dust it, or like how you clean your tent, you can wipe it with a wet cloth, and you can hang it for some time so that all the odor that is there will be gone. You can beat it lightly with a stick and clean it. Now, bedding. Suppose you go for camping and you do not have a proper bedding. All right, you forgot to take your bedding, but you've got a blanket, so you can take some fresh leaves. All right, make sure there are no insects. You can make a small bed of fresh leaves and you can cover it with a blanket and it will keep you. So that is a type of bedding that you can make. Next point, please. All right, so this was actually the end of this the presentation. I would just like to revise the main points for these. All right, so the revision. Oh, before that, I think I will ask allow some questions. Roland, if there's anyone who would like to ask any questions, those who've got any doubts regarding this,
Okay.
if you'd like me to repeat something, please tell me now.
Anyone has any questions, anything to repeat? Yeah.
How to make a fire without a match?
All right, so even though it's out of the syllabus, all right, out of this camping skills 2 syllabus, I will still mention it to you. There are a few things you could do. One thing is using, if you're in a life or death situation, if you've gone in a car, all right, so you can use car coolant. Car coolant. Now, in those days, they used to use for cooling your car, but then nowadays they use car coolant, and you can use potash. You know, potash. It's potassium permanganate. It's a purple color thing,
Okay.
substance. You mix that. After a few seconds, it will catch fire. All right, it's flammable. So that's one way to start a fire. Next thing is by using a magnifying glass.
Okay.
So you keep your dry and you focus the rays of the sun onto the tinder and you let the tinder catch fire. It will start smoking after some time. And if you keep it concentrated, you have to bring blow softly, and that thing will catch fire. All right. And you obviously you cannot do it at night because you can use it only when the sun is around. That also when the sun is overhead. So using a magnifying glass, if you do not have a magnifying glass, you can take a clear plastic bag with water. All right. And using that, you can focus of the sun. It will act like a magnifying glass. A clear plastic bag with clean water. So that can be used. Next is flint
A
and
mirror.
steel.
What about a mirror?
A mirror is possible. It would have to be a concave mirror.
Okay.
Mirror will just reflect. All right. Because we need to concentrate the light of the sun in a certain point. All right. So that is one way. If you've got your soda can, all right. So you notice the bottom of your soda can is in a curved shape.
Right.
You can polish it with mud. All right. They usually suggest chocolate. So you polish it with chocolate, and it starts shining a little more. You can use the curve of your soda can. You can concentrate the light of the sun using that. And like I had already mentioned, flint and steel. So flint is your rock. All right. When you strike those two rocks, sparks come out. Now it's very difficult because you'll have to strike it in a certain way. You'll have to find the right rocks, and the sparks will have to fall onto your tinder. Now it's very difficult to do that. But if you're in life or death situation and you need fire, a man can do anything. So if you can use that method. Another method is by using by rubbing two sticks together. All right. So you make spindle. It's called the spindle method of making a fire. You keep a small wood, a bamboo, maybe a thin one, and you keep a pencil sized or at least your finger sized length stick. It should be at least a foot long, and you keep rubbing like this, like this, like this. So that is how your ancestors, not necessarily cavemen, but that's how your ancestors made fire. And I've tried doing that. It takes a lot of effort. You can bruise your knuckles is the other side. You can bruise your palm, but you'll have to keep doing that. It takes a lot of time, and you'll be sweating, and one drop of your sweat can stop. I mean, it can ruin your fire. You'll have to start it all over again. So that is one method. There are many methods, but these are the general methods. Magnifying glass, like I mentioned, and using flint and steel. Those is other methods that you do not have to use a matchstick. Any questions anymore? All right.
This
we'll
may
go
be
back
out
to, yeah,
of
from here.
the syllabus, but
Yeah.
how to find direction? Can you tell us without a compass?
Okay, so we had done this. Were you present for the class? How to find directions without a
The
compass?
class is already done and it's on YouTube. You can watch it back.
Yeah, but I just say it for her
Okay,
sake. So you can use the sun. All right. Timing is everything. Timing is everything. Patience. I mean,
Joy,
You have to keep-
do you have the PowerPoint?
looking at the direction. I don't know.
Only 1 minute. Huh?
Method. So obviously, where the sun is rising, that side is east. Okay, and if it's if it's the sun setting in towards a direction, that becomes your west. That is common sense. So east, west towards your left, you face north, and the back becomes your south. All right. When you are facing the four directions, if it's north, then your right becomes your east, your left becomes your west, and your back becomes the south. the sun is one method. At night time, you do not have the sun. So you look for the Great Dipper. You look for the North Pole Star. You've got the Great Dipper. It's a constellation. You follow the stars. They point to a particular star that never moves in the night sky. God has made it in such a way it does not move in relation to the earth. All right. So that is your North Star. Points towards your true north. So that is one way. Because you know your north, obviously behind right side is your east and left side is your west. There are other methods like using your watch. I had already using 2 sticks, and like Roland said, it's already there on YouTube. I hope that helped. Any more questions? All right, I think there are no more questions, but then we as human beings, we tend to forget. I will just revise once again. So first we began with this, the 7 points, right? Previous one. Yeah, the 7 leave no trace principles. This is what we aim to do when we go for camping, especially when we go for this type of Pathfinder camping. You plan ahead and prepare. First point, okay, the ones, especially those who want to complete this honor, will have to memorize this. And you will be asked during your camping between 15 or 17. Somebody would have to ask you this thing. Plan ahead and prepare. This is the first point. You plan well, use your common sense, because it's one of the greatest gifts that God has given us. If it is winter, you do not go with bikini and swimming suit. If it is summer, you do not carry your thick blankets and thick winter clothes. Common sense, plan ahead and prepare. Next, travel and camp on durable surfaces. Do not simply run towards the water. Do not pitch your tent inside the water. Do not pitch your tent on marshy soil. Try to find a plain, flat area. Plan ahead and prepare. Travel and camp on durable surfaces. Dispose of waste properly. Do not eat your chewing gum and throw. That is very common. Right in front of me also, I can see a piece of chewing gum wrapper. I did not throw that. I hardly eat chewing gum, but somebody did not dispose the waste properly. And that is one thing that usually happens most all around. We usually try dispose our bigger waste properly, but chewing gum, chocolate wrappers are usually thrown all around. Please dispose your waste of properly. It's better to carry your waste back home and dispose it in a more responsible way. Point number 4, leave what you find. Do not simply go hunting for things unless it is a requirement where a senior person who knows what they're telling you to do tells you to collect something. So try to leave what you find. It could be a butterfly, a piece of rock, something from the west. Do not bring back anything unless you are told to by somebody who knows what they're telling you to do. Next point, minimize campfire impacts. Do not play with fire. In simple words, wear a proper clothing around the fire. Next point, do not play with wildlife. If you see a scorpion, do not go running. Oh, I found a scorpion here. That might be the end of you. The last time you touched a scorpion, or the last time that scorpion was touched by you. Respect wildlife. Do not play with wildlife. Do not tease them. Do not touch things, wild animals here and there. Last point, always ask for permission before entering another campsite. If you've got neighbors around, do not simply enter the campsite. Ask for permission for that. If you're leaving your own campsite, ask your senior for permission before leaving a campsite, because people get lost. Something may happen to you. You may go maybe only 10 meters away. All right. And an insect may bite you, or a snake may bite you, and you did not inform anybody. So nobody is waiting for you. And when it may take long time before they realize you're missing. And if you would have informed, okay, I'm going there for this much amount of time. If you haven't returned, then the person will be concerned. All right, this person said they'll come back. It's been 10 minutes already. Why aren't they back? So they may check on you, and they will know the direction which to check on you for, right? But if you simply go away without informing anyone, without taking permission, something wrong may happen. People might be thinking, okay, he might be like Jesus' parents, right? They left him in Jerusalem. He did not tell them. And they thought, okay, he may be here, he may be there. For 3 days it happened. So something like that may happen to you. So always ask for permission before entering another campsite. Ask for permission before leaving your own campsite. Next slide, please. The 6 W's. First is wind. Wind is not something to be trifled with. It is not something that you take for granted. Hurricanes cause widespread damage. All right. A hurricane can make a small piece of stone travel through steel. All right, it can travel through steel. So be very careful about wind. Pitch in a place which does not have direct hit, which is not directly hit by the wind. Look at how the wind would be blowing. Look for signs around. All right, and do not simply pitch on a cliff end, because the wind will take your tent down. All right, so be careful about the wind. Watch how the wind blows. If you do not know, we're in the internet age now. You can Google or use whatever search engine you want. Wind pattern in so and so place. Wind pattern during this season. So sometimes the wind may blow from north to south. Like over here, the wind blows north to south during the monsoon. No, south to north during the monsoon. When it's raining, it blows from south to north. And during the summertime, it blows from north to south. So know the wind direction. Next is water. Do not drink any water even though it looks clear. All right, unless you're absolutely dying. Do not drink water simply, because it can have deadly bacteria, deadly pathogens, and some diseases you can receive from drinking water simply, which can never be cured. All right, you can get diarrhea. That's the simplest thing. You can get a headache. A simple thing, you can get a disease which can never be cured by drinking water simply. Always boil your water, and do not pitch your tent too close to the water. All right, so that is the second point. Third is the weather. Try to find out how the weather will be. You can use Google to find out how the weather will be. Try to camp because camping is your choice. You can shift the day of camping. All right, if the weather's forecast says there's going to be a hurricane next week, or cyclone, they call it a cyclone in this part of Asia. If there's going to be a cyclone next, do not think, oh, this is the best time to go camping. I will go camping. The weather is going to be awesome. I can see the clouds flying. I can see that's not you being wise. That is being foolish. All right, so look for the weather, what signs there are, and you can always Google about the weather. Next thing is wild things, like you mentioned. Play with wild things, but always be sure. Like, I don't think you're going to find tigers in Kuwait. All right, because that's not a danger at all. You will not find tigers in Kuwait unless they're in the zoo. So you know what wildlife, where you're going, what kind of wildlife. You're not going to find alligators. You're not going to find giant crocodile. You're not going to find the black mamba or all those, because they're not found in your region. Like I mentioned, the place where I'm around, we've got snakes, we've got scorpions, we've got leeches. So be aware of what you are allergic to. Carry anti-venom. All right, and be very careful, because you can get many diseases. If you are allergic to all this, then that would be the end of you if you are bitten by one of these wild animals. And that doesn't only include animals, it could include plants. Like today I had gone to the jungle, and there was one plant. If you just touch it, then you'll get burning sensation. Right now also, I had contacted myself right here, and it's stinging. So I did not know about it. I should have been aware, and I came to know about it too late. But then be careful about the plants also, because Some plants can be very dangerous just by the touch. Now this plant just touched me. I mean, I just brushed against it slightly, and then it's burning here. So that is one thing, wild things in the wild. Next is wood. Do not camp under dead wood. Do not camp around too close to dead wood, because snakes, scorpions, they live in dead wood, all right, because it's a little bit warm. And when you go camping, try to have wood around you, because it's without wood you cannot simply sustain a fire. Try to have ample amount of wood to keep you warm throughout the night. And the next point is willingness. Be willing to ask for permission. Be sure that the person is willing to keep you, and be willing to learn something new. It's a good experience to go camping. You may not get everything you want, but you will get everything you need. Food, shelter, clothing is a must. You will not get everything you want, but then you'll get what you need. And take it as a learning experience. Be willing to learn, because as Ellen G. White Straits puts it, God has warned us already that in the last days we would have to flee to the jungles, to the mountains, and over there we would have to live. It would be a camping every day, because if you won't be living in a house, it would be basically camping every day. And so be willing to learn something new. All right, so I'll just revise with just these points. And any more questions if you've got, you can post your questions to Sir Roland. He will forward them to me, and I will be able to answer them much later. Is that all right, Roland?
No,
Sir Roland?
no problem.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joy.